Right. Good morning, grade 12 CAD students and some of my co-workers here. Some names I recognize here. Welcome to this online class. The file that we're going to use today, you'll find here at the bottom. I'm just going to give you a minute to maybe just write it down. You can go and download it from the internet at that particular link. It is a Microsoft Access file. And then for those of you grade 12s that do not have Access installed on your computer, you can go to Mohala, M-A-H-L-A-L-A, mohala.ms to go and register for your free Microsoft account. And then once you're in, you can download Word, Excel, Access, PowerPoint onto your computer, and you would have no problem doing Microsoft Access. It's all for free. You don't have to pay a thing. Only thing that you really do need to give up is your ID number. That's the only thing that you need to give up. Without further delay, let's start with today's lesson. I've got two separate monitors here, so I'm going to look at you, then I'm going to look at the monitor. But for now, I'm just going to switch myself off that we can focus on the task at hand. Right. So what's up for today? We are going to do aggregate functions. Now, aggregate functions form part of Microsoft Access, and it is in the exams, although it doesn't count a lot of marks. It's always there, and somehow people seem not to know how to answer this particular question. So, okay, first of all, what is an aggregate function? It's a huge word. Aggregate. I think you can break it down into 3 syllables for those of you that's very good here with English. Okay, so according to the internet, Google, you can Google everything. It's a statistical analysis on a data set, and I just added this, or a table. Okay, so what does that actually mean? It means we can take the table in Access and we can apply some mathematical functions on the whole table. Right, okay, so take a look at the next slide. In the next slide, normal queries, they work on a record for record. So you can see there with the first name, the surname, the salary, date of birth. If we're going to draw a normal query, it's going to apply to all of the records. So literally what Access does, if you're going to do a query, it's going to go to the first record. Does this record apply? Remember now we're working with calculated queries. So from yesterday's version, if you had to calculate the yearly salary of the person, it would literally go from record, it would go to the first record, calculate it, display the answer. Go to the next record, calculate the answer, display the answer. So it would go through every single record in that table, or the ones we filtered for using the query. So that's how normal queries are applied in Microsoft Access, and calculated fields as well. Aggregate functions work slightly different. Let's take a look on how aggregate functions work. Here we can say, here we've got a table with the aggregate functions already applied. Let me go to my Microsoft Access at this stage so I can show you. Right. First thing we need to do, obviously, so that everyone can see, because some people can't see well, including myself. That's why I'm putting it up there. Right, so let's just move the magnify out of the way a bit. Right, first thing that we need to do, I'm here in the table, TBL. I've opened the table at this stage. Before we start with aggregate queries, let's just see how aggregate queries work over the table, the simple aggregate queries. Okay, so here at the top, I've got table tools, because I've got my table open, and I'm going to press there totals. Okay, so what that means is that on this whole table, there's 30 records in this table. I can now do a few things. At the bottom, I can now go for this one, for the first line, I can do 2 things. I can either do nothing to it, or I can count how many records there are. Interesting to note, this is what type of field? Text field. Right. Okay. So apologies, surname and name somehow got mixed up in this one. So I go down this one, and I can also go and just do a count. Right. Let's take a look at this one. This is a numbers field. So click on the drop down. Here I can do, wow, I can do a lot. I can do sum, average, count, maximum, minimum, standard deviation, or variance. Those two we don't do. We don't care about them. We care about this ones: sum, average, count, maximum, minimum. So on this whole table, on all 30 records here in the salary, I now can go and add up, see how much are all the totals there for this whole field. So I took from the first one here, every single one of them, and I added them up. Or I can get how many records there is, 30 records. I can go and get which one is the maximum value, which one is the minimum value, which one is, well, those are the ones that we, and then I can get the average of all the salaries. How do we get average? We add up all of them, right? And we divide it by the amount that's there. Interesting to note. Let's quickly do the two fields, the two date fields. If we go down here, we can also, interestingly enough, we can get the average, the count, the maximum, the minimum of both of them. Let's go to the department again, is a text field. Let's go to the Boolean one, or the yes, no one. Again, there we can only do one thing, and that is count. So this is the simple aggregate functions. What they are doing, they go through, in this case, all the records, all of them together, and that's the data set. So we can't see it as individual records anymore. We have to see this whole table as one thing. I'm just going to magnify a bit back, because it's playing a bit of havoc here on my computer, the magnifier. So these totals at the bottom, how did I get to that again? I went up here in the table and got the totals. So these at the bottom are my aggregate functions. So if you're unsure which one to apply where, you come back to your table, you open up totals, and that's going to give you what type of function you can do on which field. So we can see that on text fields, we can only do count. On number fields, we can do sum, average, count, min, max. And here we can do average, count, min, max as well. Average, interesting. Only thing that we can't do is sum. Right. If you can remember from yesterday, we need to see them as numbers, not as dates. That's why we can do min, max, count on them as well. Okay, count you can do on anything. Right. Okay, I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go back to the presentation. We're going to get back to this one just now. Okay, so that is for each field, you can find the totals. So as I said, we now do it like this. We're going to get the answers on the whole of the data set. So with the previous one, with the normal queries, if we just go back 2 slides, how did we deal with it? We dealt with it line for line with the queries, the calculated fields from yesterday. Calculate the salary, calculate the age, those type of thing. We dealt with line for line. Today, we see this whole table as one thing and one thing only. And we deal with them like a set of data. All of this salary is one thing. We're not going to work with individual little records at this particular stage. And that's what aggregate functions do. Right. Okay, so let's take a look at our 5 aggregate functions that we need to do. So you can see from what I did in the Access database that count, we can most likely put on any single field that you want, no matter if it's a text field, a number field, a Boolean field, a yes, no field, whatever. But the sum, the min, the max, and the average, we can only do on fields that's got numbers. That's it. That's the difference between the two. Right. And please remember that, because that's how they're trying to catch you out. Okay. So let's quickly go to access. Now, for you to access those things, you need to switch on the following. Okay. First of all, this is a screenshot of the query design. Then we have to activate our totals. Can you hear what's the difference here? When we do aggregate functions, we work with totals. Remember in the table, we activated something called totals. Here we have to do the same. And then we're going to use that one there at the bottom. Right. If you've got any questions, please feel free to use the chat option. That is open for everyone at this particular stage. Right. Let's get going with one or two examples. Right. Okay. So what does everyone do? Count is count is count. It counts the amounts of records that's in the query. Interestingly enough, that's where we kind of get individual again, but it just counts how many records there are in a query for a particular query. And remember that query can have criteria or not criteria. Sum adds up the set of values, and see I underlined the word values. Minimum returns the minimum value of a set of values. Maximum, the maximum value of a set of values. And average, it adds up all the values and divided by the amount of records that there is. Right, slide 10. Okay, let's do a few things. So let's go back to, let's display the largest salary. So we're going to go back to access. I'm going to go up to 250. Let me just open the query before I go up to 250%. Okay, there we go. Oof, yeah, that's where you get when you up to 250% things jump around. Okay, so first thing that we need to do, we need to activate our totals there. That's the first thing, because what are we doing now? We're not doing individual little records. We're doing it over the whole table from top to bottom. With the individual little records, we did it from left to right. So we have to activate this one. Otherwise, our aggregate functions are not going to work. Right. So as soon as you see this thing, then you know you can use aggregate functions. Right. So the first one that we wanted to do, let's just go back to, I'm just looking for my PowerPoint slide. There we go. Right. Display the largest salary. Okay. So we're going to take the salary field and then we're going to group it by the sum. And that's it. What we've done, we've now taken all the salaries from top to bottom, and we looked at which one is the largest. So if we run it, it's going to give us the largest salary of a particular person. Okay. Next one that we can do is display. Okay, you won't be able to see it, but it says they display the average of all of the salaries. So this is an aggregate function, but there's no grouping yet. I know some of you are going to ask me, where's the grouping? We're going to get to the grouping. Let's first finish with the current ones. Right, so display all the average salaries. So if we go back to salaries, we just change this to average. There we go. If we run it, there we go. The average of all the salaries that we've got. I'm just quickly going to go back. Right, so next one, someone's asking me, how are we going to do the largest salary? So we're going to go back to our design view, and all that we need to put here or change it is to max. And that's going to give us the largest salary of the person in that data set. Okay, so these are just the small aggregate functions, the simple aggregate functions. Right, let's take a look at another one that we've got. I'm on the wrong screen. Just hold on for a minute. There we go. Right. Display the oldest person's birth date and the youngest person's birth date. If you can remember from yesterday, I told you that we actually need to look at dates as kind of a number. And if you can remember back from yesterday, that the first day is 31 December 1899. That's day one. And we currently, yesterday we worked out 43,928. So we are on 43,929 day. So when we're going to take the look at the date of birth, it's going to select the largest number there. So if we're going to group by max, there we go. But in this case, it does not give us the oldest person. What does this give us? Who can tell me? Who can tell me? Let's go quickly to the chat. If I can find the chat, that is. What is this one giving us? Yeah, I had the chat just now. Yes. Oof, apologies. Let me just rather go out here because I'm now going all over the place. Right, there we go. Let's just quickly go to the chat. The question is that I'm asking you is this one. We've got the maximum value here. We want to determine the oldest person and the youngest person. In this case, with the dates, if we run minimum, it gives us 1980. And if you run with maximum, it gives us 1998. So which one does which? Let's see. Go to the chat and tell me which one is which. Max is going to give you which one, the oldest or the youngest person, and min in this case is going to give you what? The oldest or the youngest person. Max, yes. Kyle has given us an answer, and Diane, also the max is the youngest person. Yes, you are both quite correct in that regard. In this case, having the youngest person is the person with the largest number, and the oldest person is the person with the number that's the smallest at this particular stage. So when you're going to look at dates again, just make sure you know the difference here. Right. Yesterday's video you'll find on YouTube. It should we uploaded it this morning 5 o'clock. So just look at Africa Team Gigs and then you'll find the video there. Right. Okay. So what we are busy with aggregate functions, and we kind of here where we do the calculated fields. Okay, so what we did, we just done simple calculated fields. And we said that the calculated fields is done on the whole set of this. Right, now we're going to go to grouping. And I know this is the one that people love to hate really, about the aggregate functions. Right, so let's go and take a look. So I took my database and I sorted my database and I said the following. Put all the clothing department together. I sorted there. You can, well, it doesn't show it, but it's sorted according to the clothing department, the electrical department, the garden department, and the industrial department. So I've grouped them. This whole table, remember, we're doing it on the whole set. So I've ordered them according to department. And now take a look. This is my table, and I'm doing this now manually. I said employee star points. Let's add them up for everyone in the clothing department. So I took the 5 plus the 9 plus the 6 plus the 4 plus the 1, and he gave me 25. For the employee star points, the total in their department I'm referring to the department here, electrical now. 4 and 6 and 8 and 4 gives me 22. The garden department, the same, I added everything up, it gives me 36. And the industrial department, added up, there's only 3 employees there. I added them up and it gives me 16. Let's go do it in the Access database, but let's go and do it in a table. Right, so here, I'm going back to my table. I'm pushing up my magnifier again here. Right. Okay, so I've got my totals on, and here in my department, there we go. So everyone is here. Everyone is here. Garden, industrial, all of them, tools, the whole lot. And now let me go and put a filter on only clothing. So that's the first thing that I do. And then make sure that my totals are there. And then I now go and sum them. It gives me 25. So what we are doing when we do grouping of functions and grouping of aggregate functions especially, we are saying take a filter on a field, and where there's recurring values, take those values together, and on the field that we want, do the sum, the min, the max, whatever. Take a look here. So I'm now filtering in the access. So I'm taking here, let's take away the garden, or let's just view the garden. So there we click, okay. So I'm just showing everything in my garden. The employee star points is 36. If we go to the salaries, we can go and add up their salaries as well. They earn a total of 80,000 or an average of 11,000 per person. So what it did, it filtered for us on garden. It filtered for us the salaries, only to view those salaries, and on those salaries, I've got the average. So this is from my table. So if you really don't understand how they want the question, go back to your table and go do this on your table. Go and draw a filter with, like, the department. Select, in this case, let's select paint for 1, and it gives you the average salary, and it will give you the total of the employee star points. Yes, the queries are a bit more difficult to that, but the basic principle is this. They would take now, if we're going to do the filtering on each one, we're going to take here for clothing, electrical, garden, industrial, paint, and tools. We would do it on all of them. And for each one, this is what Access will do. Kind of what it will do. It will go to clothing, check to see which ones are clothing, and go and add up the employee start points. Then it will go to electrical, add up employee start points. Then it will go to garden, add up employee start points. Everywhere where it sees the word garden, it will go and add up that start points. Same with industrial, same with paint, same with tools. Right. Let's get back to our normal view and our PowerPoint that we're busy running. Right, so this is actually how fields get grouped, and this is how grouping works. It will literally run through this department. It will start with the top one, and it will find the rest, and it will add up. Right. Right, so the question is, sir, what if they ask us for 2 functions like sum and average? Hopefully, I'll get to that in around 5 minutes time. Right, so just hold on to your hat. I'm coming to that. Okay, so to finish grouping, we need to add the fields that we want to group on. In this case, we wanted to group on the department. who's doing gardening, who's in tools, who's in whatever. And usually in your table, there will be some kind of repetition to be able to get this. And then the second one is on which field do we want the answer on. So there's usually two things here. There's a department, or in this case, the first field is usually where the filtering, I'm putting double inverted commas, are going to get done. And the second one is the actual field we have to do the sum, the min, the max, the count, or whatever on. Right. So that's that one. If we've got more than one field grouping, I think here we get to Carlos's. If they ask us for two functions like sum and average, here we've got an interesting query. We want to calculate, in this case, the department employees, and we want the sum of the employee stars, but we only want for people born in 1981 and 1982. It's not quite your question, Carlos, but I'll get to that one just now. So what we're doing, we're having actually the grouping is done here. That's where the grouping is still done. It's not done here, but we need this field first because there's a criteria on this field. So actually what's going to happen, it's still going to do the grouping because here's group by and here's sum. I think I've jumped a bit. If you quite don't understand what's going on here, what we're trying to do, we're trying to group by people working in each department that was born in 1981 or 1982. So what am I saying? I'm still saying group by the department and get the sum of their star points. And then in front of it, you can put the criteria for the date. In this case, we took out the year from date of birth, and we put in a criteria of 1981 and 1982. I put this in front, but it's kind of like two separate questions here. The first question is do the aggregate function and the grouping of the aggregate function. And the second part, which I put right smack in front, is to filter on the aggregate function. Okay, I hope it kind of makes sense. I'm not sure, because you're all muted, I can't really see what you are doing. I hope this is actually making sense for you. Right, Carlos, let's get back to yours. They want us to do the following. They ask for two functions like sum and average. Explain to me a bit more with the chat, how would a question like this be asked for two functions like sum and average? Would there be a sum of something, an average? I'm not sure how they would, on this particular set of data, how would they ask a question like this? Would they ask an average salary and the sum of the employee star points, something like that? Let's try that. I'm not sure if I'm going to get this one right, but let's try it. Where you've got an aggregate function on the salary and with, yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work. Maybe for the average here, we can get the paint department. I think it will work kind of that they'll ask you maybe the paint department, because the average here, the average of the salary is going to be one answer. So I'm not sure they'd be able to ask you that question, and to show them each one separate, that's going to be more than one. So I'm not sure how to answer your question at this particular stage. All right. Let's continue. Here's something that, let's see if we can answer the following. It says there, calculate the average salary of each department. Right. So if we go back to our query, So what we want is the average salary of each department. So in here, let's just delete all of this. So for each department, we would first of all put down the department because we want to group by the department. Then they want us the salary. And in this case, they want us to do the average salary of each department. So we're going to group by the average of each department. And that's very important. So let's run it. Okay, there we go. If you see this again, it means that the answer is a bit too big for what we want. And now from yesterday, we can go and format it to 2 decimals as well. So I can go back here to my design view, and I can go and format it to 2 decimals if I really want to. And here I would maybe use, if we move over here, I would format using the property sheet, make sure that the property sheet is switched on. I would just change that to currency and make the decimal places to 1 or 2. There we go. If we go back here and we run it again, there we go. So there's our clothing, electrical, garden, industrial, paints and tools, each one with its average salary. Let's go and check ourselves. Let's go to clothing and check the average salary in the table. So here, let me just move over. So let's move to clothing. There we go. Switch off that. Click OK. And salary here, we want to get the average salary. So you can see there's 5 people in the clothing department, 17,079, 17,079. The reason why we do it, to try to do it this way for each department, is just going to take us a nightmare. Then that's the reason why I use this. Let's just check another one. So let's take out the electrical. So electrical has got 4 people and the average salary is 17,194. So if you go back to the query, 17,194. So what did I do? I first of all put down on where I want it to be grouped by, then the actual value. And remember that everything's getting on in front of what I want to show you, that the totals there at the top need to be switched on. Right, let's quickly go to the next one. Right, display the maximum employees points of all departments. Very similar to this previous one. Actually, it's exactly the same. The only thing that's different is going to be the maximum point that we need to do. So if we go back to this one, we still want the department employees, but now we don't want the average or the salary. So let's delete that. Let's put down the employee star points, and we're going to group by maximum. Still the same thing. It's on the department and it's still on the employees. So if we run it, there we go. So clothing, the maximum is 9, then 8, then 7, and so forth. Right. Let's go to a next one. This is an interesting one. Display the average salary. We've got kind of 7 minutes left, so I'm going to rush through this one if you don't mind. Display the average salary of employees born in 1987 and 1988 according to department. All right, so this one is where that third one comes in. So we want to display all of the salaries by, so it's by department again. I'm just going to insert, let's do this rather. So I'm going to insert the employees, so that, oops, apologies, there we go. Average salary of employees born in 1987 and 1988. So here, I'm just going to write there, born, because this is a calculated field. So I'm going to take the year of date of birth, square brackets. That's what I want to do. I want to get that. Let's see what's missing here. I haven't switched on. Let's see. Born year, date of birth. Yes. What's missing there is the square brackets. There we go. So if we take the year out, that will be 87 or 88. Let's see if it's going to work with that, or 19. Okay, here we want to put it on the department, the grouping. And we want to get the average salary grouped by average. It will always work in the form of first where we're going to group it on. This one will usually be last. It will most likely always be last. So if we run it, oh, nothing, because that should be 1987, and that should be 1988. Go see if it runs. There we go. So the average of the people, so there's 1 in clothing, 2 people in tools, which is the average salary, but I don't think this one should have been grouped, which is not doing for me properly. Let's just see. Department average. I'm not sure why this one is doing what it's doing. Let's just quickly check the chat. Right. Display the average salary. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's giving me that particular answer, to be honest with you. The born year, date of birth, group by, and group by average, the salary. It's just give me a quick minute, because it's supposed to give us that tools as an average of 1, not as 2. Or 1988. I think it's not going to do us the average in this particular stage. Let me just quickly go and take a look what I did with the previous ones. If you go back too far, there we go. We had group by. This is the one, it's very similar to this one. Date of birth, group by 1981, 82, group by and group by sum. But for some other reason, if you make it 1981 and 87, it doesn't want to work, but it's exactly the same query. I'm going to leave it there for this one. Yeah, it actually gives us it the way it gives us. So it's not actually giving us the correct answer. That's the answer that I had yesterday as well. Yes. Apologies for that. Right. Okay. What we've got here, aggregate functions, calculate data from top to bottom of the table, right? Count, we can use on any field, but only min, max, sum, average can be used on number fields. Grouping, this is a grouping of our fields, of our aggregate functions, is done by adding the field that is, the grouping is done last. All the other fields are done first. And that's one YouTube video I'm going to put up there for a minute that you can go to and take a look at some aggregate functions and some YouTube videos that a person has uploaded for us, helping us with that. So I'm going to give a minute there. And then what are we going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to do access reports And we're going to do the calculated fields inside the access reports. And there's some information if you want some additional information. The best is always to email me using Engelbrecht. It should be engelbrecht@hslspark.school.za. I think we've got kind of a minute left, or are we done?